California Local and Energy Climate Colleagues. I'm Angie Hacker, the Statewide Best Practices Coordinator, and I am with the California Climate and Energy Collaborative. So thank you for tuning in to today's interview with Jenny Berg, the manager of BayREN, one of two founding regional energy networks here in California. We are calling this an exit interview because sadly for us, Jenny is retiring after being at the helm since BayREN's inception, which was 10 years ago. Having worked with Jenny throughout her tenure at BayREN in different ways, I didn't take the news well. And so, because I know she's just a powerhouse and we're losing a big powerhouse of knowledge and leadership in our field. So I've asked Jenny to sit down with me one more time and chat so I can try to extract some takeaways from a career full of massive impact for California communities. So Jenny, thank you so much for doing this. Appreciate it. You said today is your last day before your new person arrives. Just what have your last days at the helm of BayREN been like?
Overwhelming, bittersweet, gratifying, all of the above. There's a lot to do to wrap up and to start the transition with Jane Elias, who will be my successor. Haven't really allowed myself to reflect too much yet because I know that the emotions will swell, but a lot of kind of thinking about where we've come, where I've come, and feeling like we're in a really, really great place to move forward.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear you feel at a really good place. I feel at a good place too. I've been around a while. Things are a lot different than when I started in this work. So let's take a look back before we take a look forward. So maybe just start off by, what are you proud of when you look back at your work with local and regional governments?
I am so proud. I'm so incredibly proud of BayREN. I'm so incredibly proud of, the REN concept. I'm proud of local governments. I mean, my heart swells with pride. I've been in this role for 10 and a half years, and never in a million years would I think I'd be sitting here as a permanent program administrator with a gigantic budget for the next 4 years that way more than doubled in size on an annual basis. So that never did I think we would be here.
Yeah, I mean, that was not the case. Tell us how it all began. I mean, with BayREN, before it was BayREN, it was something like, this was a hard fought thing. And I want to make sure that the story is somewhere and that folks can come back to it and really realize where these, and now it's proliferated. Now it's an established institutionalized thing, but that wasn't true 10, 12 years ago. Will you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the best historian for the pre-REN days. I know that LGSCC was really instrumental in petitioning the California Public Utilities Commission to, test us out, let local governments who have worked together so successfully under the ARA period try to become program administrators alongside of the IOUs. In the Bay Area, the ARA period was the first time that counties worked together to implement energy efficiency programs. In our region, it was 8 of the 9 counties that ran several programs and really were able to see the efficiencies of local governments working together. It allowed for kind of the newer counties in this space to work with those that had been in it for a while. And it really was a very, very successful, experiment. So with LGSCC kind of leading the charge to petition the CPUC, and again, saying that not only were there efficiencies in local governments collaborating, but also that local governments had relationships with their constituents that could not be replicated by the IOUs. The local governments are more attuned to what is needed and also have kind of that special relationship and are seen as trusted messengers. So those were the message, that was kind of the basis and the foundation for the motion that was brought to the CPUC in I know it was ruled on in 2012. So it was approved in November of 2012 for implementation as of January 1, 2013. So January 13th, 2013 was my first day. I was as green, maybe darker green than my sweater. I had a little bit of experience, but I already had a pretty long professional career as an attorney. So this was what they say is a typical career change into a new area. And, in addition to kind of my newness, I walked into something where like literally nothing had been, nothing was done. We didn't have the contract with PG&E, who was our fiscal agent. That took about 6 to 7 months. So it was really starting completely from scratch. But I think for this conversation, getting to your earlier question about, what I'm proud of, it was a lot of years of fighting to have our seat at the table. Part of it was, threats felt by the IOUs, but it was also just the infrastructure at the CPUC was understandably so 100% geared towards the IOUs. So as I just sent a note to Energy Division staff yesterday, telling them I was leaving and thanking them, for all of their hard work, it was really a lot of years of having to recreate processes, reporting mechanisms, all of that, because the RENs are different than the IOUs. They always have been. We've always had a different directive, but to get people to get used to that, get used to things like PAs is not the IOUs. There are non-IOU PAs. That took years and years, and it's still a work in process. But I just think people need to acknowledge that, like this was such a big change on so many levels.
Yeah, I mean, you established something new in a very gigantic bureaucracy. A bureaucracy meets investor-owned utilities. To make something new that lasts in that environment is no joke. So yeah, you mentioned your role, so LGSCC, Local Government Sustainable Energy Coalition. You've played leadership roles there as well, and you've been very active at the PUC. With the cake as well as a co-chair. So I just want to say thanks for all that leadership, and I'm glad you're talking about the difficulties of getting there, because I don't want anybody to forget. Even before the RENs, there were local government partnerships that was hard fought, but potentially not as folks started to see that might not be as sustainable. But yeah, it was the right time for maybe somebody like you, an attorney, to come in with all that contracting work and regulatory work that had to be done. So it was a proof of concept. If it was a proof of concept, what did it prove?
It proved that coalitions of local governments can do it, that we can implement programs, we can do it cheaper, we can do it more efficiently. We have a seat at the table. We've been successful. The RENs, the idea of RENs and the actual impacts of the RENs have been quite impactful. I wouldn't say that all of our problems are over. There's still, and there's still a lack of understanding of who we are and who we are not. That has not, it's gotten better. It's certainly gotten better. But yeah, I think we have proven to be successful with what we were asked to do, which is really, is to run programs that nobody else wants to run. And why don't they want to run them? Because they're difficult to run. So we've done that, but on the flip side of it, that is that people still, that we still get criticized because it's hard to get past the thinking of energy savings and cost effectiveness, and understanding that the reason why, in my mind, the commission was so incredibly thoughtful in the original decision approving RENs is that we were not held to a cost effectiveness standard because we're running programs that are hard to run and no one else wants to run.
Yeah.
So we've come a long way, but we still get dinged for doing things that we're supposed to be doing.
So that's an ongoing challenge of the RENs. So And then we could talk more about that. You know, you have helped other RENs grow. Like I remember because I was on the Central Coast doing regional energy efficiency programs, and I know you helped the RENs that have come after you. So it was you and SoCal REN were the first out of the gates, helping to construct everything from scratch. And now there's been a third and a fourth that have come on board, and now potentially a fifth. Tell us the role you've been playing in that. Like, why have you been investing in the proliferation of the REN model?
Well, I strongly believe in it. I mean, I do work for a regional agency, so I have a strong predilection of I think that regional is effective, it's definitely not for everything. And that's certainly a conversation we have within BayREN, an acknowledgement that some things are better done on the local level, but other things are better done on the regional level. So, I mean, I strongly believe in the idea of a REN. I also believe that people should not reinvent the wheel. These are ratepayer dollars. We shouldn't be wasting them. So I always have offered, and I will continue to offer even post my time at BayREN to be available to anybody to help them navigate. You know, it's there's a lot of things that you don't think about. We have the new CalREN, which is also a great collaborative effort of all of the RENs to help each other. I think I learned a lot of things the hard way and want people to benefit from my experience. I remember when I did talk to 3C REN, I went to meet with you all in San Luis Obispo, and there was like this list of questions, and I kept saying, no, you need to get your house in order. You have got to you have to like have your decision-making structure agreed upon. And it was like, no, we want to ask these questions. So that was my experience with BayREN, is that for, several years, we tried to trudge along without really having an understanding or agreement on who does what and who can make decisions. And so anyway, I want people to learn
and there's
from
different models with the RENs and how the governance work, but you're just saying,
right.
If you're going to do regional stuff, get your decision making and your governance down
100%.
first.
Yeah, you can't.
You avoid a lot of drama that way.
A lot of drama, a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of inconsistent messaging with external stakeholders. The list goes on.
Well, I'm going to go back to what you had said, something that's worth diving into, which is regions do a lot of things really well, so, and not everything. So what is that sweet spot for a body like, there's regional climate collaboratives coming out too. There's all these regional bodies, including the RENs. What do they do really well? And what's their role in addressing energy and climate issues?
Well, one thing is facilitating, groups of local governments. I know that when we were doing stakeholder engagement for our business plan, that everybody kept coming back to the role of BayREN as a regional entity as being a convener, being able to facilitate these conversations. I think that within BayREN, to answer that question, all of our programs are regional. There's no variation among our 9 counties. But while the program design is regional, the outreach is local. Our territory is very diverse. You have the Berkeleys, and then you have the Livermores. I mean, people think the Bay Area, everybody is Berkeley, San Francisco, Oakland. That's really, really not the truth on a lot of levels. The messaging, that was something we learned the hard way, is the messaging is not a regional activity. So the BayREN counties, we have an agency from each of the counties. They are responsible for doing the outreach to their jurisdictions. So that is an example of what works well on the local level, outreach marketing, the face-to-face, and the regional is a program design that works, that is the same across the territory.
Like the back end being the same,
right?
Program administration, the front end being customized. Do you have like an anecdote you can share? Like, why did the messaging not work on a regional level?
Early on, we did some ad buy, like some, I think they were ad buys on radio. so they would extend outside of our territory, our geographic territory, and they wouldn't include our whole territory.
Oh,
So, I mean, that was just kind of one small example.
coverage.
Um,
Okay.
Language, I mean, we have so many different languages in the Bay Area, but some, different cities, different counties have one language, others have others. That type of, so
Yeah.
it's pretty challenging.
And probably different. I mean, the politics are not homogenous, even in the Bay Area. So probably
Right.
different messaging there too. I used to do that. South County was one type of call to action, and North County for me was a different call to action.
And we've kind of have had this with decarbonization. We are at the end of the day an energy efficiency program administrator, and we do offer rebates for electrification measures, but yet that's not and shouldn't be like the primary focus of our outreach. We have, like, for example, Solano County, and that BayREN rep was, has been very vocal, like that doesn't necessarily work in his county, in his jurisdiction. So, there has to be kind of a balance in thinking about that when you have such a diverse and large territory, territory programs.
Well, it's probably part of the beauty of why things have worked out well is that you found a way to collaborate really meaningfully with the local governments that are within your jurisdiction. They have some level of decision making and
Right.
deployment, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely do. And they also have contractual responsibilities to work with their jurisdiction. So another kind of promise of BayREN is to build internal capacity. So that's not only on the energy efficiency and climate knowledge side, but it allows them to build stronger relationships with their jurisdictions.
Yeah,
which is really important.
Yeah, so you're empowering them to do that.
Correct.
So, and that's that part of that role. Some days I just want to put it on a whiteboard. Like, what do local governments do? Like, what are they have a sweet spot. They do things that only they can do versus regional versus state. How do we just maximize all of that as best we can? But let's talk more about BayREN specifically for a minute. So, as you look back on your work there, like what is a best practice or two that BayREN built that you really hope lasts or scales up or gets replicated by others?
I think one of the strengths of BayREN is our cohesiveness, and that really was built on figuring out the right way to make decisions as an entity of 10 different voices. It hasn't been easy, but we use something called holacracy, which is a decision-making structure. We call it holacracy light. We're not true holacracy. Zappos is a famous company that uses that. So it provides identified roles and accountability. So there isn't like a confusion about who is it that, for example, speaks to the CPUC. That is my role and my accountability. So there's no, kind of ambiguity. It's same with our program managers and our county leads. So that, I think that's been a best practice. It's worked really well for us. Engaging our local governments and other stakeholders and really listening to the types of programs that they see are missing. Another best practice is to be collaborative. I mean, we have an excellent relationship with PG&E. We continue to find ways to make it easier for invoicing and contracting. We check in with each other about comments that we're going to file to make sure that they're not, that we're not like having any type of public feuds. So I think that's really, really important. And as a result, like our operations are very, very smooth. Our invoicing is very smooth. I think that's really important. We're not in competition with each other. They understand our strengths. They understand that there's things that we can do that they can't do. we understand there's a lot of things we have no interest in doing, that it's much better for an IOU. So I think it's really important. There is also the perception that it's the Wild West with all of the different PAs, and at least speaking from the Bay Area, that could be furthest from the truth.
Right. Yeah, you guys are organized and you're talking to each other. And that could have gone a lot of ways with the IOUs. I mean, so you really must have done that delicately, but also maybe this is it. To me, things feel like the way they're supposed to be. There's a writing of the dynamic that has occurred, where now there's more of a partnership rather than being sort of subordinated to the utilities, which never felt quite right. So is that how it feels to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm only going to speak for the Bay Area. I think there's some more challenges down south. I won't speak for them. But certainly with PG&E, it wasn't definitely was not overnight.
Yeah.
I mean, and I understand where they were coming from. There's certain threats at the beginning. So I think, I'd say, it was years of just building that trust with each other.
Yeah.
I have been in the role since the beginning. I mean, they've had several different people move into this role, but, whoever is leaving always ensures that there's kind of a smooth transition, and also to understand that there is this trust in our relationship, and that's just gotten, stronger and stronger over the years.
Well, we're certainly going to miss your role in all of this, because you do have that. You have some really great way about you of carrying something forward and building confidence in the people around you, and finding a way within your authority to make decisions to move everything along. So I know I'm going to really miss that. I'm sure your staff are going to miss that too.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about when I was a lawyer, and someone that I worked for a long time, he said to me, there's nothing in it for us to play games. Sit down with the other side and say, what is it that you need? Let's figure out a way to get to it. So I think that's really kind of guided how I work professionally. It's like, I don't have time nor the inclination to get into some pissing matches or to try to play games. And so that is how I feel like my relationship with PG&E is like, this is my objective. How can we work together to help achieve that? And similarly, if they have something that they want to work towards, we will try to figure out a way to, for both of us to meet our goals, which a lot of times it has to do with administrative stuff, but it's like, let's see how we can work together.
Yeah, well, so you proved a lot of things. You've proved local governments can work together, that a regional entity can administer programs successfully, even the hard ones. You've proved that there can be a positive, friendly relationship with utilities that works. And on top of all that, then you kind of came in and helped rescue the SEEK program. So I've been really honored to work with you in that capacity over the last few years, and wanted to say a big thanks for the role that you played in helping to keep it going. So, why did you do that? Why did you think SEEK was important enough to invest in?
Because local governments get a lot out of SEEK, and it was a no-brainer. I mean, I work for a regional agency, so I don't profess to say what I know what local governments want, but I would hear through the BayREN member agencies that people were really, really upset, not only with their LGPs going away, but also the resources that SEEK provided. So to me, it really seemed like a no-brainer. And I contacted Energy Division to say, hey, I'd like to do this with at that time, there's just the other two RENs. Is that okay? Is that okay? And I think that it would fall under one of my programs with local government support. And the response was, we would be so grateful if you guys picked that up.
Oh, yay.
Yeah. So it's
I
just,
actually didn't know that the Energy Division was that supportive. That's great.
Yeah, because local governments can be loud, and they knew what was going on with all the LGPs going away across the state because of the changes to the TRC. And there was only so much that they could do, and they also appreciate that local governments got a lot of value out of some of the offerings from the IOUs. So yeah, it was just like, this is what we do. We help local governments, and it was a help for them. I mean, we didn't take over everything, which at least up here, some people are still upset about. There's always a thought process that I go through about funding. Is this energy efficiency related? And I need to be able to pass that test before I can say yes. And some of the activities I wasn't able to pass that test in my mind, so we haven't funded them. But yeah, I mean, the last every conference, you just see people learning from each other. You see how hard everybody works and they want to do the right thing. And they have an opportunity to not only learn, but to meet people and then take it back to, their own jurisdictions.
Yeah, I really like that it's being led, kind of locals leading locals now.
Yep.
It's a really good feel to it. And I really just appreciate that's part of your legacy that you're leaving with all of us. And is there anything you want to say about Seek and like your hopes for what it does and becomes?
Well, I want to just thank you, because you've really taken this position and elevated it. And I think you coming from local government, knowing what is helpful to them, has really shown. And I really appreciate the learn sessions and just getting speakers on topics that local governments are interested in. And I attended one, I think, on the IRA funding, and it was like the first time out of however many events webinars I had been to, that I finally understood what the heck was going on. So just like, providing bite-sized information for people, for understanding that local governments need kind of hand-holding technical assistance. You've really been fantastic at providing that. So huge.
Well, thank you. This role is fun. I'm not gonna lie, I'm really enjoying it because there's so much we can do in this space here, like when we work together. And so, I've been the role is best practices, and there's that will always be part of it, but it's sort of turned into like positioning too. How do we position ourselves collectively to access the resources we need to get all this work done, and to present ourselves and all the successes we have in a more cohesive way. So I'm excited about the future. So just thank you for, letting us continue along collectively. And let's look ahead now. Let's spend a minute just looking ahead, because I want to know, you've been at this a while. I want to know some of your kind of key takeaways after putting your head down for so many years. So for those that are going to continue the legacy, what do you think are some of the biggest opportunities, I guess, in the near future for local and regional governments?
I think the fact that local government support is in so much of this new funding, these, IRA and some of the state things, I think is something that really should be harnessed. I know for BayREN, it's hard to keep up with everything, but I think the more people, local governments, RENs can work together to get the funding, I think is one thing that is, a positive step. For rent, I mean, I'm just going to again talk to BayREN. We always have this, and say it's a joke, but I'm always looking for BayREN 3.0. And what that's meant to me is that we've been doing this for 10 years. We have a very, effective structure. How can an entity like BayREN or programs be leveraged to add on, to look for other benefits, all that help meet the state goals? So for example, we can't do anything with renewables. We can't do anything with EVs. It's against our, it's one of our funding restrictions. How can all of that be added on to energy efficiency programs? So that, I think, is a huge opportunity. It's a challenge because, different funding sources, different funders, it's a lot of administrative hassle. But I think the more that can be done, the better, because it reduces the number of touches with whoever the end user is. If it's a residential program, if it's a local government, whoever it might be, the more that can be offered in a holistic, kind of streamlined fashion, I think the better for everybody. And, like in our region, we have 7 CCAs.
Wow, is that true? 7? Wow.
7. So we we have some examples where they will, several CCAs will give an added incentive for something that they're interested in. I mean, it's been electrification measures, but the admin is, all the admin is done behind the scenes. So if you live in my county, in Alameda County, there's an extra $1,000 incentive from East Bay Clean Energy. I don't know if that I get all the EBCE. And I don't necessarily, so, but it's all just one, it would just be one form that I fill out.
Okay, yeah. So, and this is what I'm so interested in your thoughts about sort of like the end game, or, like you could vision out, say, give us another 10 years. Like, where are we trying to get to? What is this place and this, what does it look like from a program administration perspective to do this the best way possible?
That's sure an easy question. I think it needs to be a streamlined process, again, for the customer, whoever the customer might be. I think it's way too confusing. And I think there needs to be a kind of centralized communication clearinghouse. That's something that I kind of have advocated with my group. Like, there are so many different programs. There's so many different eligibility criteria for the different programs. It's just, it's really hard to navigate. It's hard to understand. It's hard for me to do it. And I'm in this business. Imagine somebody that, is working 2 jobs and has kids to raise, and they are trying to figure out what the heck is going on. I want a new, electric cooktop. It's good for me. It's good for my children. I understand that there's rebates, but it's just, who has time?
You have to go on a whole hunting expedition just to figure out where to go for the best help out of all the help. Yes. And
what's the best entity to do that? I mean, I think that, there's a big push for statewide programs. I'm not opposed to statewide programs, but the outreach and all of that really, in my opinion, needs to be regional and or local. This is a very diverse state. It works in Southern California, might not work in Northern California, but Northern California is huge. And so, those are things that need to be acknowledged and understood.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think, the state's going to play a big role here. And we keep trying to bridge something with the state a little bit more. If we can work together, I think we can really unlock a lot of this potential and streamline things quite a bit. Well, yeah, Body said all of that.
And also, so we just submitted comments to the CEC building decarb draft guidelines for their direct install program. And, we're very supportive, but we were trying to take it in the role. Our comments were from an implementer, and like, this has been our experience. And I think a lot of programs are very well intentioned, but I think that unintentionally there are barriers that are contained therein that sometimes kind of diminish the returns. So I think that's another thing that we all need to be mindful of, try to work around.
Yeah, tying these pieces together cohesively is there just to be a focus on it. So yeah, I'm thinking the RENs are going to play a big role in all that, and hopefully SEEP can help facilitate some of that conversation as well. What else? Is there any other challenges or pitfalls you see that you really want to wish local and regional governments luck on as you look ahead?
Well, anytime you're dealing with government, health and safety is always top of mind. Wildfires across the state. I mean, I think, that's a challenge. And what I love about local government is how, we are the first line of defense. When there's a fire, I wouldn't think to call my CCA or, PG&E. I would think to call, my local government.
Yep.
And there's, if I wasn't so hard struck with your beautiful words to me at Seek, I would have just said to everybody that I am so in awe of local government staff, how hard people work, how much people care about what they do and wanting to do right by their constituents. Like within BayREN, I just, when we try to talk about challenges with the program design, it's like the counties, like they want to serve those most in need. I mean, it's just like I can, they say it, but I can just see the emotion. So, local government, I hate hearing when people say bad things about them. Such hard workers, heart is so in the right place. And that,
yeah, the capacity is misunderstood. I see that so glaring, but maybe changing. I think it's beginning to change somewhat. And one of the messages I hear myself saying a lot lately is, the local level is where climate change changes from a math problem to a humanity problem. Like you don't have a choice. They're the front lines of, if somebody's going to protect that community, it's going to be those folks, along with the other stakeholders in the community, but it's the local governments that are going to rope them together.
Yeah. And I mean, during COVID, like there were so many times that we would have BayREN meetings and half the people were, what is it? The emergency activation, where they were out there, dealing with people that were facing eviction or that kind of thing. So like, that was always kind of a wake up call to me. Like, this is what people do in their day jobs. Like I work just, mainly on BayREN, but it was like the local government staff who are part of BayREN, they were, called up.
Yes, and always willing to take on more and more, right? Even, countering the wrongs of economic oppression. Well, we're going to take that on too, all right? So, trying to invest in the right places, disinvested places. It's just changed a lot. It's changed a lot from just counting kilowatts.
Yeah, it sure has. But there's some that haven't changed. And that was back to what I was saying earlier, that, we still get dinged for doing what we're supposed to do. That's right.
So like the metrics haven't caught up quite yet. Well, so I really love that in your bio, it says, Jenny strongly believes that regional strategy and implementation is key to addressing critical issues such as climate change, transportation, and air quality. So is that the message you want to leave us all with? Or what message do you want to leave us all with?
That's a message. I guess just keep working hard, keep up the good fight. Don't back down. I always say, don't take no crap. I mean, I think that just means like continue to advocate for your position, for your role in all of this, because if it's a REN or a local government or whatever, we all play critical roles and therefore have critical voices in the conversation. So if, the CEC guidelines are just absolutely not going to work and you're, voice that.
Yeah.
So I do think that's really a very important role because, the RENs are used to getting the crumbs, so like and that's just because of the, the criteria for our programs. Definitely not complaining. The trade-off has been worth it, but you need to advocate so that you're not still just getting the crumbs.
Yeah, it's like step into their power, right? They have special authorities that really are unique.
And speak up. I mean, that is something, speak up and tout your accomplishments. I know like that's just not my personality. So that's something that I struggle with. But as a result, it's, I can do it in writing. It's a little bit harder for me to get up in a meeting and say, we're so great. But I think people need to communicate the success, the success of your jurisdiction. It's like there's the larger jurisdictions that get all of the print, but that, some of our jurisdictions are doing so much with absolutely nothing. And they don't have a communications person to publicize that.
Yeah.
But to speak up and say, hey, I'm, little town California, and we're doing all of these things. You don't know about it because we're too busy, but, try to let other people know.
Well, that's good inspiration for me. Part of my role is to amplify some of these stories and help with that. So
Mhm.
do that. Well, Jenny, I'm so glad that at the forum we all got to give you a nice big standing ovation and say thank you and appreciate everything that you've done for SEEK and for the state. And thank you for sitting down with me one more time. I hope you aren't a stranger.
Well, don't be a stranger. If anyone ever needs any help or any historical knowledge, you have my contact info. I mean it from my heart. I am always available. And thank you, Angie. And thank you for the kind words and the standing ovation to everybody that was there. That really, really was a memory that will last forever.
All right. Well, thank you, Jenny.
Okay.
We'll sign off here, everybody, and join us next time for our next interview. And
Okay.
continue to follow us along at eecoordinator.info.